Well, here it is. Lauman is back in action, and it's so good to see this man back when you have the master coming back to the actual anime, when we have the apprentice, the person, the main character Maomao that we've been seeing up until this point. Now that he's back in the actual company, I think it's going to bode well for the show, because think of it. If we've already been seeing the little mysteries and things that Maomao's been doing, having Lauman be a part of the cast and not just be a throwaway character, there might be even stronger or might even be like harder mysteries that Maomao may have to consult with him and they may have to bounce ideas off of. So I am actually glad that he is here. So, because I think it's going to make the future of this anime even more exciting. So yes, I'm excited that he's back, and I'm excited that, they did address the fact that he was a quote unquote criminal, but, technically we don't really know the specifics of this said crime. We have been speculating since the first season that it had something to do with the fact that maybe some babies being swapped out. And of course, now we know how the previous Empress was. The definitive thing that he was cast out for is not necessarily known, although it had been speculating. So we might even learn more about that. I mean, he was not only exiled, but they damaged his knee to where he's permanently with a cane. Getting the lowdown on the specifics for him will be actually pretty cool. Can't wait to see his frame of mind when he's trying to piece things together, because we've seen back in season 1, he thought of stuff very quickly, and he's going to Maomao like, oh, you haven't figured it out yet? And she's like, oh? And which is funny because we see normally Maomao is the first to figure out mysteries, so I'm looking forward to it. So there's a bunch of little things that happen in this episode that we'll get into, and actually I think it kind of works together towards a bigger whole. First things first, we know that Lauman's back. We just talked about that, but I honestly didn't know that Maomao knew that Lauman was her great uncle, because if you remember, back in the first season, the way that we knew as an audience, as viewers, was because of Lakin talking about his past, and Lakin was talking about how, oh, he has this very smart great uncle and such, and at the time we were like, okay, we didn't know how it corresponds. But then we learned from Lakin's backstory that Lauman was his uncle, and then we were like, oh snap, the whole family's all together, and how it all works. This was the first that I've seen that Maomao knew of this, because of how it was directed to us from Lakin's perspective. So that's great that she knows that, it's like not a big mystery that she doesn't know, like, Lauman is actually related to her and not just like some stranger that knew about the pavilion and knew about medicine and all this, and how he was always a very intelligent person. Yeah, she knew this. It's like, oh, okay, all right, hey, that's great. She knows where she's coming from. But then, of course, we gotta talk about the beginning of the episode, and even the name of the episode, Ice. Maomao over here making ice cream out of it. It's like, okay. And the fact that the ice was going to the one concubine in this whole show that's the most sus is going to concubine Lao Lan. And it was like, dang it, of all the concubines. Because remember, in this area, there are lesser concubines. Like, we know of the head concubines that are for the emperor, but there's some lesser ones, medium rank and low rank ones. Of course, they've been massaging, and where the girl got the hairpin from was from a lower concubine. So of course they're like, oh, it could have been anyone, Maomao could have worked her magic and kind of been, apologized, all that. But once he said it goes to concubine Lao Lan, and she's like, dang it, the one person I have no connections to. It's funny that mysteriously it must go to her, but we already know that through the grapevine, she's kind of not eccentric, but she likes certain things. And Maomao goes, makes the ice cream, and who should show up but Shisui? It's like, where did she come from? This whole episode, they didn't even need to have her in it. Maomao's making the ice cream, everything's cool, then all of a sudden they turn around and she's just there. And they're like, even they were puzzled, like, where'd you come from? It's like, oh, I heard commotion. I just dropped everything and came in. That's, sure, that's what happened. Okay. You know, for those that don't know, I still speculate that there's definitely something up with Shisui and concubine Laolin, whether they're the same person, whether it's the prince and a pauper type deal where, you know, one looks like the other, so the actual figurehead is a fake while Shisui's the real Laolin. Whichever the case may be, there's definitely something there, but, you know, we'll figure that out. Shisui definitely has a mystery around her. What that is, we shall see. And then finally, as far as the little things in this episode, we gotta talk about Jinshi. Now, Jinshi, you know, he's in the background watching. Remember last episode, he went and he was just working. He was just watching the new eunuchs coming in, and they were discussing the new attractive one. And then all of a sudden this happened. So Jinshi's just kind of there, just sitting back, watching everything unfold. And then he comes in to Maomao and it's like, is there something you need? And of course, he deems Maomao as his toy to mess around with, play around with. And of course, he still has that message that he wants to give her. Now, granted, Maomao doesn't know that he has a message for her or that they want to talk. So thus what he's saying, yeah, you could have this kitchen, but you need to listen to people more. You know, whenever someone's talking to you, you need to fully hear them out. Of course, Maomao's like, what? Because from her perspective, she does that. She listens to people. Like, she doesn't understand her own quirks and how that her quirks can sometimes mess with people. Remember, you know, her upbringing and how she is not really, you know, perceptive to the social aspects of things, you know, from her upbringing. So of course she's like, what? That's why she was also puzzled when the girls were after her. It's like, oh, we thought your father would be, you know, weird like you. And she's like, I don't get it. Yeah, it doesn't clue into her about the social stuff. Because of that, Jinshi's request was, you know, perplexing to her. And then he's like, never mind. And then the whole issue with the hairpin. And he's like, wait, I gave you a hairpin. Why aren't you wearing it? And she's like, and of course he kind of says on his breath, like, yeah, once you wear that hairpin, then we can talk. Of course, she's like, barely hears it, understands what's going on. And he's like, don't worry about it, I'll get you the kitchen. So yeah, Jinshi definitely there's still that discussion he needs to have with Maomao to tell her the truth of who he is, for whatever reason, for Maomao to side with him. And then, you know, it's kind of been a running gag now that, you know, every time he's trying to say something happens, or Maomao's just bird brain, like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's gonna be hilarious to see how long this actually gets milked out before it gets to the point where he must tell her. But, you know, we'll go from there. Finally, the biggest thing that happened this episode is discussing the baby may be in breach, which is actually a huge concern. And, you know, a lot of viewers might be young, then, you know, they may not understand what's going on here. So for those, let me fill you in. They did a proper explanation of what, you know, a baby being breach is. So, you know, I don't have to go that far, but you got to understand, this is something that takes place, you know, in an older, feudal Japan, China type era. You know, it, of course, is a work of fiction, but comparing what is happening in the show to even today, nowadays, if there's an issue with a baby being breech, that is a big issue, even in today's technology and today's time. You would think that it would be like, oh, it's no problem. We got all this technological advances that, you know, if a baby's in breach, it's in breach. But there's still a lot of complications that can happen. When, of course, Mama's talking about cutting her belly open, they're talking about a C-section. Yeah, even that's an issue, because if the mother loses a lot of blood, nowadays you can get like blood transfusions, you know, have blood. They have IV bags, you know, blood, and then that way they replenish, everything's good. That's not gonna happen in this case. If she loses a lot of blood, she's just gone. And you don't wanna lose a important character like that as one of the main concubines. So yeah, it is definitely a huge deal to have a baby in breach, even now in the year 2025, let alone in whatever year this is supposed to be happening in. So it is a big drastic deal, and I'm glad they were able to solve it by just something as simple as adding another character into the show. Now, granted, he's been in the show, but they're like, you know what? Instead of being in the background, being, someone that we've discussed, you are now in the foreground, and he's going to be in the medical area with the quack doctor that Maomao keeps calling him. So yeah, overall, I think this is an episode that was a great step in the right direction, as it's still trying to set up some things. There was a problem that was solved in the case of Maomao making the ice cream, but not necessarily a mystery per se. But it's actually good because, like I said, we're learning about the baby being Breech. We're learning about Genshi and Maomao's dynamic, and they even answer some things about the main theme song. We were wondering why Maomao was back with the hairpin, that happened way back in the season 1, and the whole ice cream thing. And it was like, why is it showing a picture of an ice cream? Hey, more stuff is being solved. If we could just figure out why in the world do they have those fox masks, maybe that will come into play at some point. But overall, I think it was actually a pretty good episode, and I'm looking forward to the next one because it definitely looked a little perplexing. Nothing that really blew in my face like, oh, this is what the episode's going to be about. So we shall see. Great episode, great series, great show, and definitely I will have to say that Apothecary Diaries is definitely one of the best anime that's been out, and it consistently delivers and consistently does very well. And I hope you guys have been enjoying it as much as I have. In the meantime, I hope you guys be safe, you take care. We'll be back discussing more, of course, on the channel. If you're new here, make sure you like the video, make sure you guys subscribe, and I would love to see you around more as we constantly keep discussing things in the comments. Hey, I love seeing what you guys have to say and your opinions on things, but please, no spoilers if you actually know the definitive answers to things. But you guys make sure to take care of yourselves, be safe, and Lord willing, I will see you next time. Bye-bye for now.
This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon.